Damn, that's a lot of stars coming my way. Wait, is that a recap developer? Yep, that's him. Oh boy, I sure am getting somewhere with this. Hello once more, my Western friends. I Straw with you, back with some fresh news surrounding the delayed release of 1.19.84. Have the Mojang decided to wage war against mods and plugins designed to disable chat reporting? Have they finally fixed all the exploits and vulnerabilities I have mentioned in my two previous videos? Have there been other vulnerabilities all along that only now were finally discovered? Stick around, because you are about to find out. Since my first video was based entirely on snapshot 22W24A, and I didn't cover most info that followed, we're gonna start where we left. One change I am obliged to mention here is that a few offenses have been removed from valid report categories, namely profanity, nudity or pornography, and extreme violence or gore. They have also updated descriptions of categories such as drugs and alcohol and harassment and bullying to tilt those more into the direction of generally illegal stuff. If you want my opinion on this change, it is a step in the right direction, I have to give it that. But to complete the journey in the right direction, we need the system removed entirely. So, to me, it's not like it makes things better, more like it makes them less worse. Also, remember that thing about your private and public keys being kind of disconnected from whatever account they are issued for, which I spent half of my 30-minute long video trying to explain. As it turns out, Mojang have actually fixed this in release candidate 1, which came out on the same day I uploaded my video. They made this change completely silently, which is part of the reason I am so late with covering this, because on that day I've just read the release article, didn't see anything that would relate to my research, and just left things there. So, how exactly they have fixed this? Well, now the signature that Mojang issues for your public key is generated not only against the key itself, but also unique ID of your account. This way, when server tries to verify your key using that signature, it will have certainty that the key was actually issued for your account and not for some other account. And all the clients that receive that key from the server will be able to have the same kind of certainty. A trained eye would notice that, on the surface, this seems to badly break backwards compatibility, because all Minecraft versions that came out before this release candidate, all the way back to 22W17A, where signature system was first added, do not know that they have to check the signature against user ID plus public key combo, not just the key itself. But Mojang have done something very sneaky in here. If you have some technical knowledge and you want to do some brain exercise, I suggest that you pause the video right here and try to guess exactly what it is. For everyone else, I'll just tell you the answer. They have made it so that, depending on which Minecraft version you play, they will give you a different signature for your public key. So, if you play pre-release 1 of 1.19.84 or prior, they will give you a signature that does not include your user ID. But if you play release candidate 1 of 1.19.84 and later, the signature you receive from their services will be different and it will include your user ID. Do you realize how badly they want to keep details of how the system works in secret from you, to not mention such a big vulnerability being fixed in any way? Because this is massive, it makes signature system much more reliable for you as a player as of release candidate 1, and almost useless on any versions before that. Another adjustment they have made in release candidate is that now you can report players who are currently offline if you received their message before they left the game. There was a ton of bugs related to that change, where executing /say command using command block or as another entity would count towards reportable chat log, but this has been fixed in pre-release 2. Not much to add here, I don't know why it wasn't that way from the start, but incompetence seems to very well explain a lot of weird things that we are seeing with the system. Next, I already briefly mentioned multiplayer bans, but now is a good time to explore them in more details so that we better understand the scope here. What we need to consider is that both your client and server communicate with Mojang's authentication services when you try to log in to a given server. This is necessary for the server to be able to establish legitimacy of your account, because if we exclude authentication services from this system, anyone can join with any name and user ID they want, and the server will not have a way to tell apart authentic accounts from completely made up ones. And now, Mojang exploit trust that we have been putting into their services all these years, because when you get banned, those services will simply refuse to process your attempts to join servers, and because servers cannot be certain about your account, they will not let you in. For that same reason, multiplayer bans extend across all Minecraft versions. If you get banned while playing 1.19.84, you will not be able to join servers of any version. There is a rumor circling around the internet that banned players can still play multiplayer on 1.6 and prior. I do not have the technical knowledge about those old versions to tell you whether this is true, and if so, why it works that way. But what I can tell you is that most probably it's either low priority for Mojang at this point, or simply an oversight on their side. Either way, even if it works for now, most likely it will not in the future. When you consider it under this angle, it also explains very well why Mojang have chosen to implement global bans and not global mutes, for instance, as a lot of people are suggesting. When you think about it, functionally, mute would have been much better. It just makes much more sense that player who said something bad in the chat would be restricted from using chat specifically. However, mute would not be enforceable on old versions of Minecraft, and it would have been much easier for servers to opt out of the system, because all checks necessary to handle those mutes would have to be implemented in server code. So, if you operate your own server, you could just install a mod or plugin that prevents those checks, and you're good to go. This alone is a very strong indication that Mojang do not even consider giving individual servers an option to not be a part of the centralized report and ban system. When they said they are gathering feedback on this, they didn't mean they will actually consider making this optional or removing the system if people do not want this. They just wanted to evaluate how disastrous it's going to be for their reputation. And we all know how that one's going, do we not? There is actually one way to circumvent bans. That is, to operate a server in an offline mode, because then authentication services will be completely excluded from login process. The only thing you will need is some kind of way to access multiplayer menu when you are banned. But this is not a big concern. You can actually do that by simply disabling internet connection while Minecraft loads, because then the game will not communicate with authentication services on your behalf and will not be able to fetch your ban status to subsequently block multiplayer button. A more convenient way would probably be to install some kind of mod that re-enables that button for you, for instance, no chat reports. Again, this will not let you join any server, only those that have online mode disabled. Moving on to pre-release 2, this is where we actually got some big news. The biggest of them is the fact they are back into pre-release mode, which means they are very likely to delay this update for a long while and fix most, if not all, bugs and exploits I've been covering in previous videos. We will talk about some of the specific ones later, but the gist here is, at least now we have some hope that 1.19.84 is not going to be the most fundamentally broken update in the history of Minecraft. It's still going to be the most disastrous, but now the emphasis will be on moral, ethical, and perhaps legal issues, not technical ones. Talking about actual features in this pre-release, there are only two to cover. The first one is chat trust status, which allows you to see if message has invalid signature or if it was modified by the server in some known way. By known way, I mean that the server does not try to conceal modification from the client and willingly gives it the ability to see original contents of the message, which we can hear by hovering this question mark. If the message has signature that can be verified against those original contents, this is the indication we get. If the server does not send the client original contents and only gives it modified message, it will display as not secure. The important thing to realize here is that underlying message signature system was not altered or expanded in any way for this to work. It already had the capacity necessary to implement this functionality in previous versions, it's just that only now they made use of it. Messages already had signed and unsigned parts, and server could already make modifications to the message, write modified contents into the unsigned part, and relay both original contents and unsigned modified contents to the client. It wasn't clear back then why it was in place, hence why I didn't mention it, but now it seems to make some sense. You should, however, understand that this does not magically give you the power to always see that message was modified and how, nor it gives such power to Mojang. In the former case, server has to willingly expose signature and contents of original message, and in the latter, client that submits chat report has to do the same. I mention this because a lot of people seem to be confused by this. They think that this somehow makes my mod useless, or it invalidates context manipulation exploit. No, it does neither. It also does nothing to address the fact that right now there is no way to visually discern between system messages and verified player messages. You can technically do this if you open chat reporting screen, because system messages are visually different and unselectable there, but this isn't very intuitive, so we can consider that only show secure chat still doesn't work as advertised, even though it has improved somewhat. The second change we have to talk about is the fact Enforce Secure Profile will now be turned on by default. People can still turn it off if they choose to, but now we can expect that most servers, owners of which do not understand the purpose of this option, will have it turned on. And if they do not have no chat reports or something of similar purpose installed, you will have to expose your public key and attach valid signature for every chat message that you send. While this in itself does not fully invalidate any part of my mod's functionality, it definitely affects my marketing, because now a lot more servers will have this turned on, and the mod will be generally less effective in client-only mode. To that end, I actually want to show you a couple things I implemented as part of it, which provide some extra convenience here. So, when you first try to log into a server that has Enforce Secure Profile enabled, the client will try to refuse sending your public key to the server, and the server will refuse to let you join because of that. Once your client is aware of this, you get thrown into this warning screen, where the mod tells you that the server will not let you join unless you expose your public key and sign every message you send into the chat. At this point, you can choose to not play on the server, or you can choose to agree to those rules. Optionally, you can check the box to add the server to the whitelist in your config, so that you don't get this warning every time you try to log into it. Once you click proceed, you will get reconnected to the server, and this time the client will give the server your public key and will not prevent message signatures from being sent to the server. This way, you can still play on it, but now you are aware of danger and can just not use the chat there, or use it very carefully. Vanilla does not want you to be aware of anything, but I do. Another thing I added to raise your awareness is Safety Indicator near the bottom right corner of chat screen. This will allow you to know when server has no chat reports installed on it and you can chat there in complete safety, or when it at least allows you to send unsigned messages, in which case the mod will protect you, but not necessarily other players. In case the server has Enforce Secure Profile enabled and you agreed to play by its rules, this red icon will conveniently remind you of that, just so that you don't forget. And by the way, my mod is now available for pre-release 2 on Fabric, in case you want to see it for yourself and test all its promised features. I really didn't want to make pre-release builds, but I already have quite a bit of work done on that branch, so I decided to share it now. It's also an opportunity for you to find and report all the bugs that might still be there early, so that we have this mod as polished as possible by the time 1.19.84 is actually released. Now that we covered actual changes that were made to the game, let's take a look at a couple articles they have released in the meantime. The first one is Addressing Player Reporting Tool, but there's not a whole lot of new information here, so let me just show you a couple key segments that I want to comment on. We need to provide safeguards that will keep all of our players safe and welcome in the online environments where they play Minecraft. No, you don't have to. Nobody asked for this, you have no obligation to enforce this, you do it solely because of Microsoft's whim. Everyone is completely aware that it wasn't a necessary step. You know, most of us aren't children any longer. We know how this works, and your excuses do a terrible job at concealing the true state of things. Can I get banned for swearing profanity? No. Yeah, suppose they realized it would be a complete disaster if they actually started banning people for swearing, so there wasn't a whole lot of room for maneuver here. Does this affect private servers? Yes. Yep, you heard that. Your private servers are now the property of Mahjong Studios. Sounds like right? Sure does to me. Is my online chat being monitored? We covered this one in first video. So far, not directly. It's not like they install surveillance cameras on your server, more like they hand out surveillance cameras to players and let them install them on your server. Either way, you should be able to prohibit that, and you cannot. Are you using bots to moderate my chat? No. So far, my friends, so far. What if someone gets me banned unfairly? All player reports will be reviewed by an investigator to make sure complaint is well-founded. I don't trust your investigators, and I don't have to, and I will not. And I sure know a lot of people out there who are of the same opinion, but you keep ignoring us as if we don't exist. So, yeah, hence no chat reports. And oh, you can submit an appeal here. But it doesn't take a genius to tell that they will take forever to review them, and 99% of the time they will just decline with the most generic reply possible. We've been there on other platforms, we've been there on Bedrock, and now you are invading Java with this. Very polite of you, Mahjong, very polite. Next, I suggest that we take a look at FAQ, they conveniently link here. That's going to be a bit more engaging, since there are some interesting statements there that we have to examine. Skipping on what was already covered in previous article. Can I get banned for what I say in single player? No. So far, you cannot. But again, direction they move into does not leave us much opportunity to believe that this will not become the case in the future. In fact, I want to quote FitMC here. In regard to times before all this chat reporting thing, he says something along the lines of, "It's a system that has worked for many years and was built of trust between the community and the developers. But now, a multi-billion-dollar corporation no longer trusts the community." And you see, the problem here isn't even that corporation cannot trust us. It's that we cannot trust the corporation. We have been stripped of the games that we paid for and of any certainty in those dark ages that are sure to follow for Minecraft as a whole. We are the ones who have been betrayed here. But anyways, I digress. Will you ban people for talking about suicide? Thankfully no, but remember, everything you say can be ripped out of context and manipulated, so you're not safe. Why does Mahjong need to be involved in third-party server player reporting? Again, they don't have to be. Let's skip on a whole bunch of answers here that give us nothing new, all the way to... Will I get banned without my case being reviewed by a human? No, player reports are handled by our team of human investigators. Sure they could not be just lying to us, right? After every effort that they made to forcefully put this system in place, intentionally trying to conceal the details of how it works from you, of course you would trust their every word, why wouldn't you? You have to rely on all this independent research that people such as I do and publish, people who actually want you to understand the technical details and problems behind all this, but Mahjong's word always comes first, right? Are you spying on my server? Again, so far, not directly. Can my messages be taken out of context in a report? When a report is sent, surrounding chat lines are sent along with the reported messages to give our investigators more context on what was going on in the game. Again, they do nothing to mention that the only thing responsible for providing those surrounding messages is the client of whoever sends a report. And that client can easily be modified to not include some of those surrounding messages, or only include some of them. And oh, I also want to add a little clarification here. A couple people asked me whether system messages, such as message about player deaths, are included in the report. No, they are not. Only messages that are considered to be from players are included. which is another example of Mahjong not receiving full context. And oh, here's an interesting one. What technical measures are there to prevent messages being forged? 1.19 introduced cryptographically signed chat, which prevents the forging and/or rearranging of player messages. Any message that has been forged will be flagged for our investigators. You would think, from this statement alone, that they probably are aware of context manipulation exploits that I mentioned in my previous video, and they have already fixed it in pre-release too. Why would they say this with such a confidence otherwise, right? Well, I regret to inform you that they have done nothing to fix this. You can still forge your own messages just fine, much like you can just not include other people's messages in the report. In fact, there already are mods that allow you to manipulate the context in the exact way that I explained in my previous video. And yes, they do work in pre-release too. And you know, people might think that I was the one who inspired creation of such mods by publishing my research, but I have spoken to developers of 2 such mods that I know of, and I learned that they had this in works way before my video was out, and those people actually intended to keep those exploits in complete secret. Is that not enough proof for you that security by obscurity was never an option for Java Edition? They have only published their mods because of my video, since at that point it was just a question of time before general public is aware, so they didn't have any reasons to not reveal their cards. And again, notice just how little Mahjong do to actually explain to you how those signatures work. They don't want you to be aware of issues and concerns that their system has, they just want you to believe into safety and security that it will magically provide. And when you get falsely banned because of your blind belief, well, that's just a necessary sacrifice. As there, whoever that guy is, community manager says, we have to consider all threats to be serious and credible ones simply because the way internet works these days. Ironically, that statement alone goes on to show that whoever said this does not actually understand how the internet works these days, but you are not supposed to wonder, my friend, you are supposed to believe. Minecraft is a religion now, and Microsoft is your greatest god. And when God demands blood,
you do not question, you provide.
Alright, we can skip pretty much everything else, except... But what if somebody gains access to my account? So, obviously you're screwed, but in fact, you don't even need full access to someone's account to incriminate them, you only need their private and public keys. And let's talk right away about why those keys are much easier to steal than your account itself. What I'm showing you right here is a file similar to which you can locate in Profile Keys folder of your .minecraft directory. And can you guess what this file, named by my user ID, actually contains? I'm sure you can. It does contain
the unstoppable Exodia!
Ah! Impossible!
I've assembled all 5 special cards, all 5 pieces of the puzzle!
my private and public key. And I have a part of it blacked out here, because guess what? They are stored in plain text. This might not seem like a big thing for your average consumer, but pretty much anyone who have worked with applications that handle and store sensitive data will tell you that this is an absolute disaster in terms of security. This kind of data should never be stored in plain text. You're just begging for it to be stolen if you do that, because any generic malware can just grab it from user files and use it or send it to attacker. Imagine if your banking application stored session data in plain text, and every other application on your device would be able to fully access your bank account by accessing that data. It just doesn't make any sense. The only thing that gives you some hope if your keys are stolen is that they are only valid for 48 hours since they have been issued. But 48 hours is well enough time to do pretty much anything. What's even worse is that if you are aware of the fact your keys were stolen, there is nothing you can do to invalidate them. You know, if someone hacks into your account and you know it right away, you'll just swiftly change your password and log out of all sessions, an attacker would not have much time to deal any damage. But if someone steals your keys, you kind of just have to sit there and observe how they use it to fabricate incriminating evidence that will get your account permanently banned from multiplayer. Do you realize now why I am trying to explain you all this? Why, unlike Mahjong, I want you to be aware of how it all works. I care about your security more than they do. For them, it's not the question of not having enough resources or not being able to hire sufficiently qualified people to do this job, because heck, I would have done this job better, even though my job is nowhere near data security. It's just the question of priority, and your awareness and safety are just not a priority for them. To that end, I suggest we take a look at one of the bug reports on Mahjong's issue tracker, the title of which explains pretty much everything about it. Chat preview message is signed rather than the original message, potentially allowing server owners to trick players into signing incriminating chat messages. If you want my confirmation, yes, this is legit. Now, obviously when a server tries to substitute preview message with something incriminating, you will see that before you send it. But you can easily not notice if you type and send message really fast, or you just don't pay attention, because substitution can be done at the very last moment. So, what do you think Mahjong have decided to do about this critical vulnerability of chat preview? Nothing. They mark the issue as invalid and that's it. They aren't even going to try to fix this. I think this serves as yet another very clear demonstration of their priorities. They are happy so long as things work out for them, not necessarily for you. Another small exploit I am obliged to mention here is that even with message signature system in place, servers can still trick you into thinking that you receive a message from completely different users than you actually do. Remember that the only data that is signed in the message is text, salt, timestamp, and user ID. The name of your account is not in this data, it is only provided by the server, and so you have to trust that server that it gives you correct usernames. Notice that this will not trick chat reporting system, since it does not even take usernames into consideration, but it can certainly trick you. I couldn't help but notice that a lot of defense I see in the direction of chat reporting is coming from people who want to believe in the benevolence of the intent and utterly disregard the failure of actual actions that are being taken. They don't do any research on this topic, and they don't want to do. All they are saying is that this is ultimately good, that Mahjong are trying to do the right thing here, that all this is to punish bad people. Turns out you can justify a lot of craziness if you say it is to punish bad people, and they say we should be patient and let Mahjong do their thing and believe that they get it all right. Does it not sound to you very much like promoting that same kind of blind belief that we just discussed? Just tell me, do you really want to be a part of this religion of blind and deaf? Because I don't want to, and I don't want you to be. I understand that a lot of people fear to lose their reputation and credibility if they publicly discredit actions of Mahjong in a way that turns out unjustified in the long run, but if you don't want to be a part of this motion, you don't have to get in the way, just maintain your neutrality. Say that you're not on either side of the argument, and for now you just wait and observe how things will develop. That's the smartest thing you can do if you are still uncertain. Frankly, I would want to talk in more detail about what people and parties are on what side right now, so that you have some understanding of current political arrangements, so to speak. But god, are those videos getting long, so I'll have to save this for some other time. Once again, comment, ask questions, state your opinions, perhaps spread awareness by sharing this video. Stay safe, and I hope we shall meet once more.